Let's get the ball rolling.
All right, so we are back. Episode 19, Fatherhood and Fitness. It's John.
Matt.
And we have a special guest today, all the way from Fulshear, Texas.
Is that where you live?
I live in Katy.
Or in Katy.
I was about to say
Same
shit.
thing.
That's okay.
Katy, Fulshear, tomatoes. Far. Let's put it like that. Mr. Michael Bina, also known as Mike Bina.
Yeah. Only my mom calls me that.
Michael? Oh,
Yeah,
my
it's
bad.
okay.
Sorry. But yeah, Mike worked with us. He is, it's fine. Whatever. At the juice box. He is still there. But yeah, Mike, tell us who you are, what you do, where you're from, just a little bit of background about you and like things like that, fitness and stuff.
Yeah, man. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. I'm honored
Absolutely.
to be on the show with my boys here on Fatherhood and Fitness. Been looking forward to this moment for a year. This is y'all's 1 year anniversary.
Oh,
It is.
It is. Right.
First podcast drop.
Speaking,
Thank you for
that's
reminding
right.
us.
1 year today, we dropped our first episode.
Right.
Yeah.
And then such an honor to have you on our 1 year anniversary episode, I guess.
Yay.
No, really it is. It's an honor, bro. I appreciate you coming on and speaking.
Yeah, coming out here.
Yeah.
I appreciate you having me. So, a little bit about myself. I'm originally from the great city of Chicago, the suburbs, actually. I grew up in Aurora, Illinois.
Aurora. Wasn't? Oh, no, that was in Colorado.
It's a west suburb of Chicago.
West.
Yeah.
Bears fan.
Oh, yeah. Big Bears fan. The official worst team in the league, thanks to your Texans.
God, idiots.
Winning their last game.
They're so dumb.
First
thank
off,
you
let's
for
just
the first
let's just
draft
talk
pick.
about this Texans bullshit. Just real quick. Worst ownership in sports. I'm so fed up with the Texans, but yeah, go ahead, bro. God damn.
They're pretty bad.
Yeah, we'll definitely dive a little bit into that a little bit later.
I have a track and field background, which is what brought me down to Texas. Back in 2010, I moved to College Station to work with the Texas A&M track and field team as a volunteer pole vault coach.
Wow.
Because that's what I did when I was in high school and college. I pole vaulted, and then that brought me down here to Texas. And then some bad decisions and some good decisions led me to the great city of Houston. I met my wife in College Station.
Oh wow.
Dating at the time, she moved to Houston, and I
Chased her.
always told myself I would never follow the girl, and sure enough, that's what I did. I found a job at a corporate fitness center at one of the oil and gas companies, and I moved as a personal trainer.
Right.
And I moved to Houston. We got married. 4 years later, I was introduced to another company that we hold dear to our hearts called the Juice Box, and I've been there ever since.
Nice.
Got 2 kids. So
2 kids.
Right.
yeah, 2 boys, man, Blake and Brooks.
Yep.
They are.
You gonna go for a girl? Oh, already?
I'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
As of right now, the boys are my
Enough.
wife and I's pride and joy, man.
Yeah.
Blake is 6 years old. Brooks, he'll be 6 in March. We actually share a birthday, which
That's
I
right.
think is super special. I thought it sucked the day of, but then I was like, wait, first of all, this is like the best birthday gift you could ever receive. Your first son.
Absolutely.
Right? So totally amazing. And then the second boy, Brooks, he was born March 31st in the middle of shutdown, COVID shutdown.
Oh, yeah.
Let me tell you, that was a scary experience because we weren't even sure if I was going to be allowed in the hospital at that moment.
Wow.
To even see and be with my wife and see the birth of our second child. So that was, luckily we were able to make that happen. But to answer your question, my wife loves our boys, does not love being pregnant. Might be the worst thing to her on the planet. And so because of that, she has what we jokingly say as a really good goalie in place that she doesn't plan on getting rid of anytime soon. But I tell her that I'm not getting snipped either. So she jokes that if we have a third child, it's going to be a Jesus baby. Divine intervention.
Oh,
Well,
that's funny.
There you have it.
all right.
There's your little bit about me.
I feel
Yeah.
that.
I know. So it's funny, like me and Mike really connected. Just kind of story about me and Mike, or just how we really. He started at Orange. You started there at the Juice Box at the studio at
Town of Country. Yeah.
Right.
Well, San Felipe, Friday nights, Town of Country.
Yeah.
On,
So you came in, and then we kind of
Saturday mornings.
hit it off, and got really close. Went over to his house and like parties and stuff. Let me tell you, before kids, or even no, I'm not saying even before kids.
It was pre-kids.
Even pre-kids, but also like it's still even after a little bit. Not as crazy.
The pool parties,
not as crazy, but still a little bit afterwards.
Yeah, we have a good time.
We definitely had a good time, and those were fun times over there, man. So now, so you're still at the Juice Box?
Yep.
Right. So now, how long have you been there?
6 years, man. Just hit my 6-year anniversary.
Jeez.
How many? 5,000 classes.
5,000 classes.
Back in August, I think, or September.
Man.
And so I'm probably pushing 5,300 classes.
Jeez, man.
And 6 years with the company. And, it's been good. Like every place anyone goes, you're going to have a roller coaster of experience. And I've met a lot of really great people. I've met a lot of really great people and people who have become lifelong friends of mine.
Mm-hmm.
And that will always be my biggest takeaway from working in that atmosphere and in this industry. I mean, you guys know, as fitness professionals, the relationships that you make and build with people are like, that's what keeps you going.
Absolutely.
Right? That's the bread and butter of the fitness world.
Yeah.
That I think a lot of people unfortunately miss when they're in the big box gym type atmosphere, because a lot of people walk in, do their thing, walk out, and they miss that crucial part of the experience.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think, and when you talk to like the big box gyms, I don't think they're really. I think for them it's just numbers.
Yeah.
For them, at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. I think the hardest thing for them is creating culture.
Yeah.
When you have a smaller, intimate type atmosphere, you can create and control your culture more than when you have 100 individuals coming in and leaving all at their own free will.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think any gym, most gyms struggle with creating that culture, and any gym that can like own in on it or find different methods to like create the culture, whether it's like the workouts, right? Like that's one thing that I think the Juice Box had that a lot of places don't have, is since everybody's kind of doing the same workout worldwide, right? That's something, exactly.
Creates connection.
You could feel connected with somebody in Dallas compared to, say you have a cousin in Dallas who took the exact same workout. The fact that they did it, you can call, talk about it, text, or just see like, hey,
share the results.
Boom, share the results. Yeah. And then that's another thing too, is afterwards being able to see the results and seeing like how long you were in the orange or the green or whatever, with the science-based part of it. Then you can, I see people that used to compete, how many splat points do you get for the day? Creating that culture, being able to talk about the workout rather than just leaving and being exhausted every time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's one thing that I think they do a good job at, man. And why I understand exactly, where you come from. So
they hit it right at the right time. Like they set the ways for all these other. They set the standard in a way for all these other small boutique studios that started opening up. Yeah. And it's the crazy thing is like all the stuff that you learn from it, from growing. Because you started, how many studios did we have at the time?
Oh man,
we had maybe
here in Houston. We had seven
maybe,
at the time.
8.
Yeah. We were still pretty small. Very close knit group when we would get together for staff meetings and stuff. It was
and happy hours.
Yeah. As well, I mean, and we had those.
Yeah. Until we did it.
And now you don't.
Yeah. John, did you mess those up?
Probably.
Funny story is that
he pleads the fifth on that, and I will neither deny nor confirm.
Damn.
Yeah. Those are crazy times back in my life. Like I look back at that and I'm like, how did I make it through all that stuff?
I wonder that too. Yeah.
Some people ask me like, how you're about to be 38? Like, I'm like, how have you made it this far in life? And I'm like, what? Thanks.
Well, we say the
Damn.
same thing with my 3-year-old is how have you made it that far? Because that's the kind of kid he is.
Is that bad, John?
But no, so like, but going back to what you said about like the community and the people, the members, I think that was one thing that in everywhere you go, that's the hardest part is when you depart from a company
Oh, yeah.
like that, like a
Agreed.
fitness that you build that clientele because people will follow you. Some people will, like they'll be like, well, where are you going? What do you know, like what gym are you going to? We'll come over there and stuff like that. It's crazy how loyal some people are to their trainers. And like a lot of the times you don't really think about it. You're just like, I'm just doing my job, like I'm just training. But to them, you're something much more than that. Like you can be a therapist at times, or like, you know, somebody that just like to talk to because they're going through something and they can't talk to anybody else. So they're like, oh,
Agreed.
well, let me just talk to my trainer. Like I have confidence in him because he gets me through the workout and he knows what I do,
Right.
blah, 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 and all this stuff. So I think that's what also like the juice box did was like you were able to build that within those four walls.
Well, there's something that I always say, and it's kind of simple, but it was developed over the last few years. Is most people need 3 things, especially when they're, you know, trying to run for a goal or they're trying to create change in their lives or they're trying to accomplish something. Most people need 3 things. They need direction, they need accountability, and they need to know that someone cares.
Yeah.
And what does a coach provide? All 3 of those. Provide all 3 of those. As a spouse, you can't.
Right.
You provide too much direction to your spouse, there's going to be some friction there. You provide too much accountability to your spouse, I guarantee there's going to be some friction there. You can never show your spouse enough care.
Right.
Right?
Yeah,
but that's
true.
only one part
That's
of it. That's
one
only
of
one
3.
part of the puzzle.
Yeah.
But what we do in the hour plus time that we get to see some of these folks, whether it's once a week and it's even more intimate on a 1-to-1 scale or a small group setting.
Yeah.
But even in a bigger class, we provide direction because they come in and they're told what to do for an hour long, which most people don't get that on a daily basis.
Yeah.
They have accountability, you know, based off of membership dues or late cancel fees, or they feel the guilt of not being in class because of their friends who are going, or not being there, being seen by you. If you've delivered that relationship, you've built that relationship with the person, like they feel guilty not coming to see you.
Right.
And then if you take it to the level of showing your members or showing your patrons or your clients that you truly care about them and care about their success, not just while they're inside the confines of your 4 walls, but outside of the studio as well, that's when you develop relationships for life and friendships for life.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I agree with everything you just said because you see it. And
No.
how long? Well, going back to really quick, when you talk about like your spouse, how long have you and Jess been married?
We have been married since June 27th, 2014. So we are going on 9 years this summer.
Dang, I can't even make it 9 weeks.
Oh, I know.
You at the 9-week mark yet, John?
Yeah. But yeah, anyways,
That's
big time, bro. That's a
That's a
blessing.
whole
That's a
different
blessing.
podcast.
It is a blessing.
That's
That
a
is
blessing.
9 years, man.
Yeah.
That's good. Congrats on that.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it's a
lot of
anybody
work.
who's been married for a long time knows that there is a lot of work that goes into it. And you know, it's funny. I was leading a workout this morning, and I was talking to this group of men about making sure that you and your spouse are on the same page, which is really hard to do, especially when you're juggling multiple jobs and businesses and children. You can easily get pulled into multiple directions, and so it's hard to stay on the same page with somebody. And you know, I was telling them this morning, like, you got to have the tough conversations.
Yeah.
You got to have the tough conversations in order to stay in line with each other. Someone else asked me because, you know, we it's no brainer. Marriages go through struggles. We've gone through some before. And I was explaining to my friend this morning, I said, well, when you have those tough conversations, it's like a bunch of rocks, right? What happens when you you put a bunch of rocks together And what do you get? You get you get a lot of space
Mm-hmm.
in between the rocks. But if you start smashing up those rocks, the space becomes a lot less.
Right.
You smash them even more, it becomes a lot less. You smash them more,
And so
you're turning into sand, you're turning into dust, and all
Right.
of a sudden everything is meshes together really
Yeah.
well. And then you pour something else, you pour some water on there, and now everything's sticking together. I kind of see those tough conversations as the hammer that's breaking those rocks
Right.
apart, so that they
Yeah.
bring you and your spouse, really any relationship, even if you got daddy issues or you have problem with siblings, like, but your spouse, man, when you get married, you're supposed to become one flesh under God, right? So
Right.
you have to have those in order to maintain a healthy relationship with each other.
Yeah, that's the thing that I've learned, especially like recently, is having those tough conversations, because no one wants to have them.
No, they're
Agreed.
very,
Like
very
no one
uncomfortable.
wants to have them because
They
it's
fucking
like,
suck.
and it's hard because you have to understand that other person, right? Like how do you approach it? I mean, you've been married, so you know how to.
But you
talk
have to have those conversations to understand them.
right, and be like, hey, I
Right.
need to know, how can I approach you with
Yeah, absolutely.
an issue or something that
9
I have,
years later,
like,
and we're still having that.
yeah. And so and that's the thing, like but I've learned recently a lot about having those hard conversations in a lot of ways, right? So, and I think a lot of people don't want to have it it's either in relationships,
Yeah.
like spouse or or it could be also having those tough conversations with when you're struggling with something with someone else.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So kind of just like gearing into or just kind of just going into like a mental health thing, right? Especially for men, right? I feel like you've been closely impacted by that in the past year. And I knew him, and just kind of going back to like a guy from work where I used to work at Peloton, like he was dating this girl, and we knew him because he worked with us. Like they both worked together, and then he ended up leaving. And I want to say probably like 4 or 5 months ago, like they got into an argument. He texted me that same day on Instagram. He's like, "Yo, we're over here, blah blah blah. You want to come?" And I was like, I don't know, like maybe." And part of me was like, "Man, maybe I should go out there." Just kind of. Long story short, he asked me something about shoes. Next morning, I'm gonna go text him or like on Instagram, send him a message back about shoes. Said user not found, and I'm like, "What the hell?" So and then I'm like, "Oh, all right. Well, why did you delete me? Like, I didn't answer you. My bad. Like, I fell asleep." Like, So the next day, his girlfriend posts something like about him that morning at their apartment. He shot himself. He went to the car. They got into an argument. Shot himself, and she went to go check on him, and she found him like there. So it's like she was like, I don't know, like I don't get it. But it's like having those tough conversations. You as a person, right? Like, how can you have these conversations? Like I told somebody, how we talk about fitness, right? Like when you're going to, like, let's just say you want to build whatever it is, like your biceps, your chest, right? So you warm up, like you get used to like doing those reps, right? Or it could be for training. Let's just say training for sports. You're doing reps, whatever sport it might be. You do catches every time. If you're a receiver, like you go through the same routes, whatever it is, right? So you practice, game day comes. When that time comes, you're like, boom, ready. I know what I got to do. So I'm like, what happens is that I don't think men, because people don't think like this, it's like, just you get a therapist, get somebody to talk to. You don't have to have issues. That's the problem. Also, we all have issues. We all have problems.
We do.
Right? So when you talk to
Can we admit to it though?
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like you don't have to talk to your spouse or your best friend, because I feel like at the same time you're gonna get a different view on like, well, what they're gonna tell you, right? They can be like honest, but they're still gonna have something in there because they're related to you, you know them, whatever it might be. But if you get a therapist and you talk to them and you're like, hey, man, like this week was great. Or it has to be once a month. You can be like, hey, how's your month? Oh, it's been great. Struggling with this, dealing with this and that. So when that time comes, when you're pushed to like, you're facing something, you're like, okay, now I know how to communicate to someone with it, right? So you're training already talking to somebody. Now it's like, oh, I'm used to this. I can communicate with somebody. Right. Now when you go through it, you're like, oh, I can talk to you about it. I can talk to you about it because you're already set in that way, right? So I think it's hard. I've gone through a lot of stuff through like mental health in the past. And I think having just kind of going into those conversations, like it's hard.
It is.
you know, and you're like, why couldn't you talk to me?
Yeah.
Oh man, this is a deep conversation.
Hell yeah.
And my brain is going in 15 different directions.
Yeah, right.
Um,
No, I get it.
Yeah,
on how to answer. I think what a lot of it boils down to as a man is ego.
I was gonna say something within maturity too as well. Like
Yeah.
if you can be mature and then you can learn like that is ego too as well. Maybe tone it down, you know, and know that all the answers in my brain aren't correct. Talking to somebody like a therapist or just in general vocalizing it with whoever your spouse is and just getting the air under the bridge, right?
Yeah.
Like
and
but
it's yeah.
but to go back to ego, like I think you nailed it on the head too as well, bro. So
Well, I think with maturity,
Yeah.
like the more mature of a person you are, the more you understand yourself, and the more you can recognize whether your ego is putting you in an advantage or a disadvantage.
Yeah.
So I don't think all ego is bad.
No.
I think being egotistical can be bad, but you can also have a positive ego and aura about yourself as well. But it's the egotistical man that gets himself in trouble because with being egotistical, you have being prideful.
Right.
Right.
You can have being narcissistic.
Mm-hmm.
You can have a bunch of different things that hinder your ability to seek help,
Yeah.
whether
Agreed.
that's with a therapist or a group of friends.
Mm-hmm.
I think immaturity leads you down the path of being around the wrong circle of people.
Right.
The more mature you are, the more you want to level up. The more
Right.
you want to level up, the more you want to surround yourself with people
Right.
who are a positive influence in your life.
Right.
And I think if you're not trying to level up, then you're most likely going down a path that's not helping you. And what I was going to say earlier about your being on the same page with your spouse is what I was telling my guys this morning is you're either growing with your spouse or you're dying with your spouse, and the latter of the two.
I like that.
I would say, most people don't want to go through.
Right.
So what are you doing intentionally to grow with your spouse?
Right.
And or if you're a single person, what are you who's in your circle first of all?
I think part of that too is like that kind of piggybacks with maturity is self-awareness. When you can be aware that first of all you got to be aware, or somehow there has to be a moment where you recognize me and my spouse, we're not growing. We're just here. We're dying, right? Like I like how you put that. Like we're just wasting the days and we're not talking to each other. And then that's kind of how people split apart too as well.
That's where resentment is created.
Right. And then that goes down a rocky hill as well. But being self-aware means, okay, you know what? I'm not giving my all in this relationship or in general. I know that I could communicate better. I know there's things that I can improve on.
Absolutely.
And then the other part of it is hanging around people, right? Like being self-aware that these people you're not growing with, right? Or in general, these people they're not helping me in any type of positive way. But you have to, maturity, you got to an extent too as well, realize maturity-wise that part of it is it could be a little bit of ego driven, right? Like I think I know it all. Or in general, I think
that's not me. I'm not like that.
It's not you, 100%.
No, I'm saying like that's the ego.
Oh, you
talking.
saying? I was about to say
I'm
that's not
like
you,
that.
bro.
That's not me. That's
seriously
no,
though.
that's your ego in your head saying like, we're fine.
Or
no
I choose. I
it's
have
their
the best
fault.
friends. I have the best friends. These I know I chose my friends wisely. I know these guys, aren't out to hurt me, or I'm always right when it comes to our relationship with my wife. Or it could be kids, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes I saw something on TikTok not too long ago, and it was like a kid who was like at a seminar talking with like some adults, and it was like the adults had just had a conversation about relationships with their children and how they let their kids know, like, you don't pay bills, you don't, like, so you need to respect me within my household. And then but the kid was more so explaining that a lot of the times some of the stuff that I say and she said her mom realized a lot of times some of the stuff that she says isn't said to be disrespectful. It's more so just said because she's curious, like, and she doesn't know how to explain it the right way. So her mom had to realize, okay, I'm gonna give you this time to talk and explain to me how that makes sense in your head, whatever it is, if it's a disagreement or something like that. But as parents, when you cut the kid off and you say, you don't pay any bills, I don't need to hear nothing from you, or in general, right? Like that, kind of like that old school mentality, then you're really being demeaning to the kid, because it tells the kid that what they're saying is not worth anything.
We
and
all
is
cycle through that
right.
once or twice.
Right, we have those. Trust me, and
Yeah.
that took me. I had to rewatch it because I was like, man, I don't want to be that parent, but at the same time, there has to be some. How do you, within that line of respect, say again, self-awareness, and then a little bit of ego. You just got to kind of like, that's with every relationship. I think relationship with the kids, wife. I got a business partner. We got to both put our egos down on the table and be like, look. We need to meet in between. What you saying ain't wrong. What I'm saying ain't wrong. We both are right. We just we're real. We feel strong and passionate about how we feel.
Yeah.
But we got to figure out the middle ground. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you have to.
That makes me think of two things. One, self-awareness, and two, the why. Okay, so don't let me forget about the why. Do you guys know do you guys know who Jocko Willink is?
The Jocko drinks.
Well,
Is that what it's called?
He has.
Is that him?
He has a drink. Yes.
Is that no? Seriously though, right? It's like military
It's called-
covered.
Yeah, it's called.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
I've heard of
but
that.
he's a ex Navy SEALs officer,
Right.
and leader extraordinary. He's written a few books on leadership strategies and tactics. One of his first books was called Complete Ownership. And so one of my coworkers actually turned his podcasts onto me to help develop my own leadership. And one of the things that he talks about in regards to self-awareness is taking ownership over your situations or on everything.
Right.
Like if you and me are together and we're having a fight for some reason, it's my fault we're having the fight. Like I need to be self-aware enough and I need to subdue my ego enough to where I can say, this fight right now is my fault, and it's my fault because whatever. It's my fault because I didn't listen to you well enough, or I didn't communicate with you well enough. If you're a leader of a team and your studio's failing, or your classes aren't being filled up, or you got a big project due and there's people on your team that aren't meeting their deadlines, it's your fault as their leader, not their fault because they don't know what to do. It's your fault because you didn't communicate what their expectations were properly in order for them to carry out their job.
Right.
So it's the same thing you're talking about. When it comes to self-awareness, you have to put yourself to that level and be able to accept responsibility for all circumstances. If my kid hates me, it's not because they're a bad kid. It's because I have done something
In a way,
to
you
them.
failed them. You failed them, and whatever happened, it's your
to make
fault.
them want to hate me. Yeah.
Exactly.
And
So,
then the why. So I used to get ridiculed a lot for asking questions, asking why. And John's laughing because he knows exactly. My reputation was like, oh, that Mike guy, he's a problem. Well, why is he a problem? Because he's always questioning what we're doing. Well, here's the thing.
Yeah. I remember meeting
Asking the question why, like perfect example. My son says, can I watch TV? And I say, no. He goes, why not? And I say, because I said so. That's a bullshit answer.
right, absolutely.
Right? Which is what you were saying.
Kind of, going into
Asking the question why does one to two things. Like as it exposes leadership or it makes you better.
Yeah.
That's what it does. Is it
Absolutely.
exposes you or it makes you better.
Right.
And if I say you can't watch TV because I said so, that is my son exposing me for a bullcrap answer. I don't have one.
Right.
Or I can say, I would rather see you play a game and engage your brain. I would rather see you go outside and work on your baseball swing. I would
Right.
rather see, how about you and me go color together so we can
Right.
get your creativity juices flowing instead of sitting there. And I've had this conversation with them several times. I don't want you sitting there after school every day, mindlessly, passively watching a television show. Is it educational? Maybe. It can be. There's a lot of great TV out there.
Right. Absolutely.
But do I want you doing that every single day? Absolutely not.
No, I agree.
Welcome to childhood obesity and childhood neglect.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a big
100%.
thing. Obesity in children it's huge, and it's all of that. It's just like this or here,
Right.
nothing going
It's
out
why
there.
we don't own an iPad.
Yeah.
We
Well,
don't
even
have
if it's not
tablets.
obesity, it's other things too that, whether it's kids learning disabilities, you know what I mean, or
Yeah.
and which some can be born with, but at the same time, like if you're not training the brain or in general
You
from a
have
young
to.
age, because everything when you're young, you're a sponge.
Yeah,
You're
you
soaking
have
it in.
to.
Or it may not even be a disability, it might be just interest, right? You may not have an interest in anything else besides phones, TVs, electronics or whatever it is. So it's just kind of like, I mean, you're hindering yourself or you're hindering your kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whenever it comes to, electronics to an extent. It couldn't be some educational stuff out there, but
Yeah.
I mean, we are all about the same age. We grew up. Parents
I'm
told us to
old.
get the hell out the house. We'll leave outside.
Oh, yeah,
You know what I
dude.
mean?
That was
Play
so much
outside for
fun.
6 to 8 hours. Come back in. It's a different generation now.
you know,
And
that's
Rugrats
crazy.
and Power Rangers
Yeah,
and
that's crazy.
Nickelodeon back in the day was the bomb, dude, with Guts and
Absolutely.
like
Yep.
Wild and Crazy Kids.
Yep.
And
But that was so limited.
And you know what's crazy is like you go back and you're like, yo, we were gone outside. Like parents didn't care where we went. They had no
Yeah.
cell phones,
Yep.
nothing. Like go.
No phones.
And you were
Right.
gone.
You had a bike.
Right.
That's it. And
you had a
just
football
and
or
you just
baseball.
If you
go.
went missing, you just
Right. Like that's the thing.
Wait
It's
till you
like
come
now,
home.
Yeah.
now you're like
payphones.
Now you're like, do you want to go outside? Do you know?
Right.
It depends again where you're living and
Yeah.
stuff like
Yeah.
that, right? That's a huge thing
Absolutely.
because if you're like out, like a lot of times, like in the
Dude.
suburbs, and you have a small community and
Right.
stuff, like
you can do
you
that
can
type
do
of
that.
stuff.
That's why, like I think
In the
if-
backyard, bro. Listen, I live in a very safe neighborhood, and I don't want my kids playing out front.
Yeah, I get
If
that.
I'm not out front, you're not out front.
Yeah,
100%.
and it's crazy now, right? Think about it when
I
you
never would have thought. Like
Now-
I can think
now
about,
think about it.
several times 30 years ago being outside climbing trees. At 5, 6 years old without any parental supervision. And I think now I'm like, first of all, hold up. Like, don't climb too high or don't climb at all.
Well, the moment they start
And-
walking toward the door, you're like, where you going?
it's like
You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
and it's just crazy to think back then. You're like, our parents, did they not care about us, or was this just different times? Like it was just
Totally
like
different
different
times, dude.
parents.
you know,
bro.
it's just like because we would go, all the kids would go, and everybody was together though. That's the thing too. It's like I don't know how many kids do. I don't see it, but maybe I'm living in the city, so it's a little bit different for me. But like I'm sure in the burbs, like you have kids that like still gather together and like,
Plenty. Yeah.
ride their bikes together and do all
plenty
that stuff. So
communities
that's a
have
little
that.
bit different because if my kid goes out and with like 5 or 6 kids and they're all doing stuff together, then I'd be like, okay, probably a little bit more again.
As
age-
long as they're behaving themselves.
well, that too. That's a
Yeah,
whole
age
other thing.
appropriate stuff.
That's a whole other thing. But
It's a different podcast.
but yeah, man, I think, but honestly, I want to touch back. I want to go back real quick to when you said, like, you ask a lot of questions. Yeah, we would be in head coach meetings and we would sit there and then, yeah,
I need a
we're
drink
just
for
sit-
this.
And then I think we're like ready to go. And I feel like Mike's like, all right, so why? And people were like, Mike, but I get where he's
Right.
coming from though. It's
Yeah.
like, cause there was a lot of things. So we're going to go into that really quick, right?
Yeah.
What makes a business, a small or like a boutique studio successful on a sense of like from everything from the top to bottom.
Yeah.
Right. And we won't get too much into it, but like,
Right.
what is one key thing that you think that, because we all worked at this place.
Yeah.
And I think I took a lot from there, a lot of good and a lot
Yeah,
of things like
absolutely.
what could have changed or what I look back at and I'm like, man, I think they shouldn't have done this or this
Right.
should have been handled differently or whatever.
Right.
And I learned a lot as like
Yeah.
myself working there, like
Right.
do's and don'ts. Definitely a lot of don'ts. But
Yeah.
Can you please enlighten us?
I was gonna say I learned some don'ts from you too. So hey,
we are not. We're saving that for like the thing called Patreon where you have to pay to listen to that
Gotcha.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can subscribe to that whenever we get that going, and we'll let. Yeah, all right.
John
right.
Cantu Uncut.
But that's gonna be $100 a
there
month
you go.
because
There you go.
it's gonna be $100 a
Yeah,
month
new-
because I'm gonna
new
need some money
podcast
for.
idea.
You might need to get like OnlyFans for that or something, John. I don't know, bro.
But what would you say is the number one thing that you feel like can make a studio successful?
Leadership.
I knew you were gonna say that.
I
Hey,
think this
look.
is a Jocko quote. Everything rises and falls on leadership.
Boom.
Everything
Yeah,
from the top down.
Yeah.
and
If you can't lead, you will not succeed.
Yep.
And I think you can delegate.
yeah,
I think if you are just not a good leader, you can delegate and have the next in line lead.
Yep.
But if you can't lead the next in line, then how are you expecting them to lead as well?
exactly.
And then how are you expecting the next line to lead? And how are you expecting the next line to lead?
Yeah,
Trickling down to, even if it's a small organization where you have an owner, you have coaches, you have members, right? If as an owner you can't lead your coaches, how do you expect your coaches to lead the members? If you have multiple tiers of leadership, it's the same thing. If you can't lead the next line, how do you expect the next line
To
and the
lead,
next
right.
line and the next line? Like
Right.
leadership.
Right.
Leadership controls attitude, right? What's the famous quote from Remember the Titans? Attitude reflects leadership.
Yeah,
Captain.
Yeah.
yeah,
Cap.
You got employees with piss poor attitudes. Why?
yeah,
Right.
Are you asking the question why?
yeah.
Yeah.
With that
Are you
approach-
asking them why?
Right. So now you're going
Right.
back to the why. Like, and sometimes.
Why do you have a bad attitude?
Well, we going back to being self-aware too.
But it's like-
right? What could you as a leader be doing better to where your employee no longer has an attitude with you? Or what are you doing wrong? Like you said, recognizing that if something is going wrong, that's my fault because I'm the leader
Yeah.
and this is my business.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So yeah. And I think we can really dive deep into that, but we don't really have too much time today.
We don't. But just to continue to answer your question, like leadership dictates everything.
Absolutely.
Leadership can dictate your community.
Right. Absolutely.
Leadership can dictate your attitude.
Right.
It can dictate your communication and your communication style.
Right. I will say with like where we all came from, right? Don't have to name drop, but where we all came from, there's here's and there's as far as leadership goes. But I will say one thing they did a good job at is learning how to delegate initially, right? They realized the ownership knew they can't coach, and part of it may have been the structure that was already set in place. No way, we know the owners. They ain't going nowhere and training people. They're not teaching people on how to train. They knew they would have to find the person
Right.
that was going to teach everybody, and then they just kept it going. And then
Right, and-
that's
yeah.
kind of
And I think,
my way to see
I
it.
think when you're saying it's right, but I think once that happens, then you're going to get different personalities or different people that are going to be at the
Absolutely.
top. Because you might put this person like, oh, they did great, but this person's going to hire this person.
Right.
And then they're shit.
Yep.
So then it's like now all this stuff starts to become shit.
Yeah.
Right. But the owner doesn't like, and it can be anything. Right. So like, unless there's some communication there
Right.
where the owner sees it,
Yeah.
what's going on and addresses it,
Right.
then it's never going to get addressed.
Well,
right?
that's where the disconnect happens too. As an owner, when you hire those people who are representations of your company, and you put trust in them, like it may not be, you may not need to give, may not, right? But it may not be their job to hire the next person because you don't know. Like if you feel like you're doing a great job at hiring people, then keep the shit going and stay on these individuals that you're putting at the top. But what happens is you have a downfall whenever you give that to the person, under you, and then they start hiring people, and then that next person starts hiring people, and then now you have that disconnect from the whole company. But then also like you don't even know half the people that got hired on. You just
but it's just because when it gets to the bigger scale,
Yeah.
because that's what happens.
Yeah,
Like it's
exactly.
just hard to like navigate that. Because I could tell you
True
at the
that.
beginning, it was definitely even when you were on like
Yeah.
at 7,
Yeah.
like it was definitely lots tighter,
Closer
and
knit.
there's a little bit more communication in that sense. And I think it's just as
Yeah.
it grows
Well,
up.
I think all successful businesses want to grow, right? Because if
Absolutely.
you're not growing, you're dying.
Yeah, you got to scale your
That'll be the
business.
theme everywhere. Look at a plant. If a plant's not growing, it's dying, right?
Right.
So everybody wants their business to be in the same light. So I would say one of the next most important things behind leadership is having solid systems in place.
Absolutely.
And the systems
Boom.
are what help hire people.
Right.
The systems are what help the people who are hired hire other people or train other people. Your training systems, your hiring processes, like those are systems that you have to have in place.
Yeah.
And then expectations as well.
Yeah.
As a leader, you need to have expectations for everybody, and you need to set the expectations for the next people in line to be able to set those expectations to the next people in line.
Right.
And that's how you continue to grow your business.
Right.
Yeah.
I think definitely leadership plays a larger like percent onto it. Like I like that order that you gave it. Not to take away from the other two, but the leadership part definitely holds a heavy hand, because as a leader, you got to be, again, aware that there's no system in place. So you could be a great leader and be very, great with people and be, empowering. But then if you have no system,
Exactly.
it's going to be exposed. And then again, no expectations. Eventually, it may take a little bit longer, but that's going to be exposed too. So
That's how you lose brand.
Boom.
Without expectations, you lose brand.
That's right. That's right. But man, we can dive deep into this some other time, because I feel like we could go on for a long time and just be specifically just about like an episode just about small business and what it takes to like be a successful studio or whatever it is, and kind of just dive into that.
It's not
And
even just that. You could any business.
Yeah, in any business.
Even if you're a network marketer, like you have a small business, like it's the same thing.
And so, and I would love to, like, we can come back and circle back. I know you got to go because you have to pick up the kids.
Right, he got
or
shit
kid,
to do.
one of them. You're picking up one.
Well, my wife's gonna have to pick him up. I'm just
Or
gonna
you have to
get
go.
ready
You have to go to work. That's what it is.
He's got shit
That's
to
what
do.
it was. Yeah, your kid's picking up. I mean, your wife's picking them up. Okay, one little thing before we get back, or before we get out of here.
I got time for one more.
It's really quick. It's just a quick question. Because we're gonna go back. So we talked about it a little bit in the beginning. Bears. Who do they take with the number one pick? Do they trade Justin Fields and go get one of the quarterbacks?
Oh shit. No.
That's kind of been rumored.
Armchair quarterback over here. I think they trade back.
Trade back.
I think they hold on to Fields.
Yep.
Get some.
I think
more
Fields
picks.
is he's a baller, dude.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What he was able to do this season from like the 5th game on,
Yeah.
maybe 7th game on, with his feet,
Yeah.
he would have broke the rushing record.
Absolutely.
If he had played the same way for the first 5 to 6 games as he did the rest of the season, including playing the last game, he would have broke Lamar Jackson's rushing record. So the dude's a baller. Is he the best passer? Probably not.
Yeah.
But you also have had pretty low-rated wide receivers surrounding him too,
True.
and an offensive line that it looked like TCU the other night, who can't block anybody.
And he's a rookie this year, right?
He was second year.
Regardless,
Yeah,
he
he's
doesn't
young.
have that much experience.
He's young.
Yeah.
So, and for you to say like his passing percentage is bad or his completion rate is bad, well, he also has no offensive line. He got sacked the most in the league.
Yeah.
And his wide receivers aren't the best. There is no. I read this article before the season started. There's no wide receiver on their team that would be a starter on another team.
No freaking way.
That's hard. So,
And I'm like, ooh.
I can't even
I think
name
they trade
anybody.
down
and get some help.
and they get a bounty of draft picks because that's what the GM Ryan Poles wants to do. He wants to build through the draft.
Yeah.
In order to do that, you have to have draft picks, and I think they only have 6 or 7 lined up for this year.
Well, I hope they don't trade down, because the Texans need quarterback
I
number 2.
think the
the Texans need to trade up.
I think the Texans get that. I know. I think the Texans.
I don't know. That's a bad deal. I don't see trading up.
Well, Lovie Smith, bless his heart, he brought the Bears to the Super Bowl back in 06 with Sexy Rexy Grossman, who lost it to, I think, single-handedly
Steelers, right?
to the Peyton Manning and the
Peyton.
Colts.
Colts,
That's right.
He went out on that last game with a big FU to ownership.
100%.
I think him and what's your quarterback's Davis Mills. I don't think he is expecting to come back either as a starter. So they both were like, "Hey, let's go ahead and shove it to the owners and get them out of the first pick of the draft."
Right.
And make them have to trade up or do what they have to do.
Fucking
I think Texans are gonna be good either way. There's a couple good, between C.J. Stroud and
They got
Bryce
two.
Young, they got two good ones right there.
Yeah.
And a
to
couple
pick
other
from.
dudes. But I think the Bears trade down. My only fear is by trading down, Arizona is going to pick up Will Anderson
Oh, the
from Alabama, which
yeah.
is an
defensive
edge
tackle?
guy.
Yeah.
He's an edge guy,
Yeah.
defensive edge
And-
guy that
yeah.
the Bears need.
yeah.
He's like your next Khalil Mack type of player. But the defense, you look at mock drafts, aside from quarterbacks, the defensive line is so deep this year
Yeah.
between Georgia, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, a couple
Yeah.
other teams that I think you're going to be in good shape with just about anybody you pick.
Yeah.
But get a trade down in order to receive someone else's number one this year, someone else's number one next year,
Yeah.
and a couple second mid rounders.
Make it make sense.
You're gonna. I've even seen some trades for other players. Like
Yeah.
trade me this player plus trade up. And give me this round, next round,
Right.
and these
All that.
4 or 5 other mid rounders
Yeah.
to
Should be an interesting draft.
build. Yeah.
Who do you have for the Super Bowl? Last question.
Dude, that means I'd have to be paying attention to who's even in.
in the playoffs right now.
I think Eagles have a good shot. They're a good team.
Chiefs.
I
Chiefs
think
gonna be there.
if they play solid football, like sound football, they'll be okay. The Cowboys are unpredictable.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
I think those are the two teams
I
that
think-
probably have the best shot to make it.
think
The
that-
Cowboys are just so unpredictable.
What about the Bills though?
You never know. So that's the NFC. On the AFC
Oh, NFC,
side,
got it.
you have Bills versus
Chiefs, pretty much.
Chiefs. Bengals are good. I don't think they're as good as last year.
Agreed.
They don't have the zip and the pizzazz or the magic as they had last year. I think the Chiefs are the team to beat. I mean, they're the number 1
100%.
seed for a reason, and they've probably been the most consistent team the
Yeah.
entire year.
Right.
Should be
Bills
good.
would have to probably pull out a really big game in order to beat them at Arrowhead.
Yeah.
Like they almost did last
Yeah.
year,
Yeah.
but would they score 4 touchdowns in the last minute and 30 seconds? Like
Mhm. Yeah. It's
between the
crazy.
two teams, it's stupid. Like
Crazy.
play some defense, make a tackle. We'll see what happens, man. But I think it's gonna be Chiefs.
Eagles.
My wife wants the Cowboys because she's from the Fort Worth area.
Cowboys,
Cowboys
not,
getting
Cowboys,
bumped out this
they might
weekend, bro.
lose Monday
Who do
night.
they play? Who do they play?
They're playing Tom Brady
Buccaneers,
and the
bro.
Bucks,
Oh,
The
I
Cowboys
don't know,
this
man.
year
The
have
Bucks?
been.
but they're playing. The Bucks are starting to roll a little bit.
Yeah.
Mike Evans and but we'll see because the Cowboys
Wait.
are weird.
And the Cowboys, they do well against good teams, and they do bad against
Hey,
bad teams.
Don't count out the Minnesota Vikings, dude.
Oh yeah, they've been balling too.
Minnesota.
They had a
Minnesota
great
Vikings,
record this year.
13 and
Yeah.
4.
Good point.
It's gonna be interesting.
They are a good
Playoff
team.
football. It's best time of the year.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Best time of the year.
Yeah,
But
I have no
anyways,
dog in the fight. Obviously, my team's picking number 1. So.
Same here.
I just hope to see some good playoffs, some
49ers
good
though.
games.
Let's
Yeah.
go, boys.
Oh yeah, the 49ers.
Let's
Forgot
go.
about them.
This guy.
Yeah, the team that the Bears beat the first game of
I
the
know.
season,
Jeez.
And they beat the
Uh,
Texans, slapping the face for the first pick, right? So
Yeah.
They beat the
Oh, yeah.
Texans too as
and
well.
took your pick. Yeah,
Yep.
Sheesh. But yeah,
this should be good. It should be fun.
Yeah, but thanks, man. Appreciate you coming. I know you got to run.
I appreciate you guys
we're
having
gonna-
me on. I'm
we're
looking
gonna-
forward to the next one.
Yeah, we're gonna get you back
100%.
on. Maybe we'll bring another OTFer to sit next to you
I mean,
next
shit,
time.
I think we did good with him, but yeah, we could.
Oh,
though.
we can bring
Well,
somebody
there's
else.
just so many different ways we can go about it. Like
Bring
we
your wife.
hardly even talked fatherhood
Yeah,
I know.
exactly.
and fitness.
That's
you
a whole
know?
nother thing.
We
Yeah.
could talk. I could talk all day to you guys.
We talk
so
no fitness.
I appreciate
That's the
it.
crazy part.
Just a little bit.
Nah,
but,
not really.
Oh
We
no.
didn't bring
Oh,
up
that's right. We
anything
talked about it
fitness-wise.
pre-pod before we even
Yeah.
recording.
Yeah.
I was like,
So-
save it, and we didn't talk about it. No,
Exactly.
we'll talk about it next time.
Next
But
time,
no.
man.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah,
Good talk,
we're that's it, guys. We're out. Oh, hold on, before we leave.
Oh shit, John.
Listen,
Mike-
share, and subscribe.
Yeah, thank you for the plug. But Mike Bina Fit, is that what it is? Your Instagram?
Oh yeah.
Like being a fit dad _fit
My-
dad.
Mike
Bina _
fit dad. Go check him out. He always does. He's always working out and stuff.
All right. Great content too. Very informative. So follow your boy.
But yeah,
Trying
thank
to
you
provide
guys.
value.
Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace.
Deuce.
Thank you.